I want to start in a very, funny place because I read some stories about you. So can you just tell us the benefit of waking up early? Because as I understand, you quite early started to rise up early at 6 a.m., I think.
I'm just one of those people that I think like genetically likes waking up early. So it works for me. And I just think most clearly in the morning before my brain is kind of flooded with everything else and tons of stimulation and too much to do. So it's just my kind of early like power hours of getting stuff done. And, I'm from New York where everybody gets up early. But in the Netherlands, it's really rare. Like when you leave the house at 6 a.m., you don't see another soul on the street. So you really, and I actually get up quite before 6 usually just to have that quiet time. But you really appreciate it in a different way here.
Yeah, because just to put that in context, like if you see like a tech CEO, like if that person rises at 3 a.m. or work out at 4 a.m., that's not like something very unusual. It happens that people in the US start. Do you think it's like the cliche, like if you start early, you can win the day? Or is it something deeper, like?
I mean, the early bird does get the worm, right? I think I think it's just that like I haven't put a ton of thought into it. I mean, I guess it is about filling kind of as much of your day as you can and trying to kind of be productive. And I haven't thought as much about it actually.
But one thing that we can add on to that waking up early, like, can you just give like a snapshot into your household? Because like if you look at all of the siblings, like it seems like you all have done incredibly things. Like, do you think it was like fostered a culture early up, or do you think it's just like randomness that you all sort of seems to have, great success and done a lot of amazing things? Or do you think something in the early age set you up to this path?
Yeah, I think we're a big group. There's 7 siblings who are all pretty like-minded in a lot of ways. And I have one brother who likes to refer to us all as salespeople. But I think when you're a part of such a big group, you have to fight often to be heard. And so you learn how to kind of get the stage and make your point and try to engage people. We had a mother who really valued storytelling and was a great storyteller. And we all definitely learned from and took a bunch of that into our lives. And parents who from an early age just kind of talked about making your contribution and the importance of making an effort is a big part of our kind of family tradition. So I think there was a lot of nurture around kind of who you should be in the world, kind of getting out there, doing something, using your time. And then when you're with a group of siblings where everyone's kind of excited about building and ambitious in certain ways, that lifts you up as well. Your world gets bigger because of them, through them. And it's a fun environment to kind of want to push your limits in with this safety net of family and siblings and love.
Definitely. So, but like at the start, so I think you explored, theater, you went into politics or policy making. Like, can you just explain, sort of like the way you find, your trajectory? Was it just trying and, or did you have like an exact plan all the time? Or were you just like, I'm just going to explore whatever excites me and see where it lands, basically?
I grew up from a very young age of having health challenges. And so having kind of a lot to deal with on that plate and always being really baffled around the fact that we've kind of constructed the society that doesn't work for a lot of people, and never really understood why, if you're going to kind of design a way of thinking, doing, being, why it would be one that wasn't more inclusive and kind of kinder and more open and all these things that so many of us as humans crave. And so from an early age, I always kind of wanted to change the way things were done, which is very vague. And I wasn't sure how. I thought in a lot of ways it was through kind of changing culture and our philosophy around who we are and how we interact with each other and how we make sense of our time here. And it was kind of always exploring that thread into different sectors and meeting different people. And I like building. I like putting pieces together. I think I'm pretty good at engaging groups and people and getting them to build alongside us or with us. And so this kind of idea of collaboratively building and really bringing in different ways of doing things kind of became part of how I did things. And I, saw different opportunities and leapt into them. But I'd actually say, even though I've kind of worked in the arts, in media, in social policy, and then through TED and running the TED Prize for a decade, through in healthcare and SETI and oceans and this incredible kind of world of just different sectors, different ideas that were all multidisciplinary or became multidisciplinary through the projects we worked on together.
Super interesting. Do you think, like, when you look back on that journey, do you also think it's a matter of, like, having sort of like the growth mindset of just making things happen? Because when you talk about that story, I mean, there's certainly a lot of setbacks in having those experiences. Like, when you talk about all the amazing projects you've been participating on, like, in my mind, at least, I don't think that comes, only by getting yes by people. Maybe you also have to be, proactive and also be stubborn to, create the world you want to create, basically.
I've been called stubborn before, for sure. I hate being uncomfortable. I really believe in making yourself as uncomfortable as possible. So kind of sitting at tables where you feel like, why on earth am I at this table with all these geniuses? Like forcing yourself to kind of muscle through and find your like reason and value and comfort zone in the most uncomfortable places is a big part of how I think we grow. And it's a big part of how I've learned to kind of expand kind of my vision and what I'm building along the way. I actually worked with someone years ago who always told me you kind of never enter a room without a real intention, a real reason for being there. And I've kind of, I've used that and as my kind of thing to focus on instead of my own discomfort. I kind of find that reason, whether it's a farmer I met in Indonesia, or one of our entrepreneurs, or my own family, or children, whatever that reason is in the moment, or because I realize I'm with a group of scientists that don't know how to communicate, and I can facilitate communication and help bring their ideas out, or whatever that reason is for me being kind of in the room, I focus on that and try to kind of drive from there.
That's a great way of looking at it. But do you, like, when you talk about, uncomfortable, experiences, do you have any stories you can share where you really felt uncomfortable, or is it just like more like like from day to day, you should put yourself through some hardships? Or do you have some top 3 things that or really stick in mind?
I mean, it's saying yes to speaking occasions. It's a lot. It's not necessarily daily things. It's saying yes to the hard things. It's pushing yourself into conversations that you don't want to deal with head on. It's interesting, I've worked in a lot with through the TED Prize, but in all these different sectors that we just talked about. And one of the most uncomfortable for me was the finance world. It's closed in a way. It's so there's such a way of doing things, and that was not my background at all. And I kind of mentioned being able to engage partners and collaborators, and I've always kind of gotten good at being able to build with the experts and kind of listen to, and so it's helped me be comfortable in sectors or spaces where it wasn't my expertise leading the way. I was kind of on the shoulders of experts. But I found that almost the most uncomfortable entering the world of kind of investment making and finance. And after, years of finally getting a real product that's strong and starting to prove itself, and really learn a tremendous amount around moving capital into markets and making investments and growing companies, I've become finally much more comfortable here. But it's definitely one of the most, entering this space was one of the more uncomfortable experiences I had.